Episode 108. Who changed my clothes?
The police have arrived. Let's get out of here. You've crippled someone. That's a serious crime.
David nervously pulled Lucas up. Tom was happy at that moment. He thought that someone must have called the police because they couldn't stand it anymore. But Lucas just calmly stood where he was and watched as the police took away all the people who were lying on the floor. One of the police officers walked up to Lucas's side with a smile. They seemed to be very familiar with each other. This made Tom speechless. Most importantly, the media reporters had come as well. He was only wearing red underpants and his face was swollen.
Lucas, you really are amazing. You gave me a big one. You are indeed my good friend. I'll treat you to a meal when I get promoted.
A police officer about the same age as Lucas patted his shoulder excitedly. Lucas avoided him calmly and only said 2 words. No need. He then left coldly. Washington was destined to have a restless night. In that one night, Washington's police swept through all the big and small entertainment companies. Even the ones with strong backers were not spared. They captured a lot of people, especially from the Royal Entertainment Company. It was very lively. Even the major media had come. Tyler, Tom, Bruce. They had all hailed from respectable families besides a few others. Bruce was taken away when he was unconscious. When he woke up, he couldn't believe what was happening. He felt that they must have mistaken him for someone else, or that they didn't know who he was. He'd been messing around for a long time, but this time the police didn't intend to let him go. They made it very clear that the person they wanted to arrest was Bruce. This was Bruce's first time in prison. He simply couldn't believe it.
Damn you damn police officer. Do you want to die? How dare you arrest me? Call your manager over.
Bruce kicked the door angrily. He felt a sharp pain and pulled his foot back. He couldn't believe that these people had dared to touch the Stevens family. They were seeking death. The prison guards merely ignored him and let him shout alone. The next day, Jade was woken by a nightmare. She was still in shock when she woke up. Dario, who was resting beside her bed, immediately opened his eyes and patted her chest. He used a gentle tone to coax her.
Don't be afraid, it's okay, Jade.
Jade slowly opened her eyes when she heard that familiar yet calm voice. She saw Dario's deep and worried eyes. Then she discovered that she was lying on her bed. She was already at home. Although her mind was very blurry the night before, she tried her best to recall what had happened. He had appeared again. It was clearly Dario who had saved her. As she thought back to the night before, Jade's sad and beautiful eyes filled with tears. She threw herself into Dario's arms and began to cry softly. She could finally let out all her tears over what she had endured that night.
Mr. Foster, it's really you? I'm so useless. I need you to save me every time.
Jade felt very guilty. Ever since she met him, she seemed to have brought him nothing but trouble. Every time she found herself in trouble, she needed him to save her. She couldn't stand it anymore.
Be good, don't cry.
Nothing like that will ever happen to you again. Dario gently kissed away the tears at the corner of her eyes. He extended his wide palm and rested it against her slightly swollen cheek. His eyes darkened and filled with hostility and danger. Jade heard his words and could tell that they were filled with deep meaning, and her heart shook with anxiety. But then she felt infinite warmth.
Mr. Foster, why are you so good to me?
Her heart was beginning to waver. Actually, her whole body had already started to waver.
Little fool, you're my wife. If not you, who else should I be good to? You didn't eat anything yesterday. Are you hungry?
Dario touched her soft hair and couldn't help kissing her forehead. Jade greedily hid in his arms and smelled the familiar scent of his body. She found that she could only sleep peacefully when she smelled his scent.
I'm not hungry, Mr. Foster. How did you know where I was yesterday?
Jade looked up at him with a trace of doubt in her eyes. Why did he always know where she was? Did he have some kind of special ability? When she thought of what had happened the night before, hatred suddenly appeared in her clear eyes. First, Tom insulted her, and then Bruce did too. To her, it was like a nightmare. Until that moment, she couldn't believe that it was true. If Dario had not suddenly appeared, she would have been defiled by Bruce. She was drugged and had no strength to resist. She would have wanted to die from embarrassment. But he saved her again. Jade clenched her fists tightly. She hated those who bullied her. Why? Why did they do that to her? Bruce had lied to her for 5 years. Wasn't that enough? Why did he want to kill her? Dario could feel her trembling. He hugged her even tighter and lowered his head to kiss her injured lips. It was as if he were licking her wound. He was so tender that Jade didn't push him away as usual. Instead, she just closed her eyes and allowed him to kiss her lips. Although she felt some pain when her wound was touched, she felt incomparably sweet. Dari didn't stay for long. He only kissed her wound. Then, he extended his thumb and carefully stroked the edge of the wound.
No matter what happens next time, you aren't allowed to hurt yourself. Do you understand? Also, those who hurt you won't have a good end.
Daria's sharp eyes became gentle as he quietly looked at her.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Meeting you was the luckiest thing in my life.
Jade smiled and then lowered her head in embarrassment. She found that her clothes had been changed. Even her sanitary pad had been changed. She doubtfully reached out her hand and touched her underwear under the blanket. Since she didn't feel uncomfortable, she was sure that it had been changed. Her face immediately turned red. She lowered her head and was instantly at a loss.
What's wrong?
Daria thought she must not be feeling well when he saw her expression. He looked very anxious. Jade lowered her head and asked in a low voice,
Mr. Foster, did you change my clothes?
What do you think? Daria asked. She didn't need him to tell her the answer. It was even harder for her to ask the next question.
Then, did you help me change my...
Jade's face instantly turned red to her ears. What was she about to say next was simply indescribable.